Before we start today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to Zencaster, which is a podcaster's best friend. Trust me when I tell you this, Zencaster is like a Shopify for podcasters. It's all you need to get up and running as a podcaster. And the best thing about Zencaster is that you get so much stuff for free. If you're planning to check out the platform, then please show your support for the Founder Thesis podcast by using this link zen.ai/founder thesis. That's zen.ai/founder thesis.
Hi, Rajiv Vij here from CarzOnRent India Private Limited.
एक मिनट रुक जाओ रेडी होने दो चलो ये कर लेते हैं दिस कुड बी अ ग्रेट इंट्रो
Hi, I'm Akshay.
Hi, this is Saurabh and you are listening to the Founder Thesis podcast. We meet some of the most celebrated startup founders in the country.
And we want to learn how to build a unicorn.
Rajiv Vij grew up in a completely different India. After completing his MBA from FMS Delhi, he joined Hindustan Motors to sell their Ambassador brand of cars, which used to be the top selling car in the country in that era. He then went on to head International Travel House, which was an ITC subsidiary providing a premium taxi service to ITC hotels and to their corporate clients. In the year 2000, Rajiv decided to quit his stable job to become an entrepreneur or a businessman as it would have been termed in that era. He decided to start a business in the space of mobility, named it Cars on Rent, and the rest, as they say, is history. Today, Cars on Rent is one of the few profitable survivors after the taxi wars of the last decade. A war which was fought on the basis of investor money and left almost no survivors. Cars on Rent is now embarking on its most ambitious growth plan yet, one which involves moving to a pure electric vehicles fleet and using best-in-class technology to drive better outcomes for all stakeholders. Here's Rajiv telling Akshay Dutt about his roller coaster journey of 2 decades.
I studied in Ramjas schools in Delhi, and then I studied at Hindu College and then at FMS in the Delhi University.
Like,
Worked for Mr. C.K. Birla. I was selling the good old Ambassador car and the trucks that were manufactured by Hindustan Motors in their Uttarpara plant in Kolkata. At that time, it was still Calcutta. And after that, I worked for 5 years with an ITC company, International Travel.
so in international travel house, what were you selling? Like was it like
So, so International Travel House, as you know, is a corporate travel company, and they also have tourism. They have foreign exchange. They also have a company which at that had the rights for Europe Car as a brand in India. So it was all a part of my portfolio to run corporate travel, foreign exchange, inbound tourism, outbound tourism, and of course car rental. And I think car rental really caught me. By 2000, I also realized that, it is not giving me the satisfaction. It's not giving me a sense of achievement that I would want to have on a daily basis. And so I decided to move.
without another job in hand? Like just decided.
Oh no, I had no job in hand.
And you were married at that time? Like
I was married. I was married. I had a daughter, and I know that when I decided to leave, I just came home one day and said that I've decided to leave. And a friend of mine, when I told him that I'm going to set up a company, he said, because nobody else made you the managing director, so you will set up your own company. But uh, that's okay. And we still keep joking that maybe I left my job only because of this, but it has worked well.
okay, okay. So like I mean, 2000 is an era where there was no appetite for risk in general in India, and like what made you want to take on that risk to start a business and no fixed salary and you're married, you have financial commitments.
So interestingly, that's what was probably my biggest strength. My biggest strength was a very, very firm belief in the potential of this industry and in the future of this industry in India. And secondly, my belief that, I understand what requires to be done and I will be able to make a change.
As in, you saw that existing players were not serving the need.
There was no player. I mean, what was the player? I mean, even in 2005, when I went to raise my first funding, and most of the investors were actually cynical, and they said, "No, I mean, which industry are you talking about, Rajiv? There is no player. There is only this black and yellow meter taxi that you see. That also are all 20-year-old vehicles. So, which industry, what scale, which exit? What are you talking?" And so I started from there.
Tell me about that launch. Like, how did you actually? Because car rental is like upfront investment business, right? I mean, you need to buy cars before you can rent them. So, how did you launch? Like, did you have that corpus with you, or?
So my total savings at that time were about 29 lakh. And when I wanted to purchase my first set of cars, I wanted to purchase about 30 cars to begin with. And I decided that we will set up an operation in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore.
Oh, all three together. Okay.
All three together. And we said that we'll start with about 10 cars each in every city. So we didn't have money. We had no collaterals that we could give to a bank. But I must say, at that time, there was this team of young professionals at ICICI Bank who were extremely supportive. And they were supportive because they knew what I can probably do in the long run, and that I understand this industry, that I'll be able to do things. Our business plan was right. With a capital equity of 29 lakh and zero business in hand, we were able to go and get 30 cars funded, which was roughly at that time about 1.5 crore of funding. And that somebody to put that confidence on me was a great sort of morale booster, that we'll now make it. And after that, of course, simultaneously, I then immediately went back to some folks at Hertz whom I knew, and I told them that I have set up this company, and I would like to build your business in India. So can we collaborate? So their first reactions were like, our franchisees in different countries are guys who run large hospitality chains, they run airlines, they have large automotive businesses, etc. How will you do it? And I remember when I went to New Jersey at that time to meet the chairman of the board of Hertz, this old, very nice gentleman who was an ex Ford person, because Ford used to own Hertz at that time. So he told me, he said, Rajiv, where will you get the money from? And I told him, I said, I'm sorry, but if you are looking for somebody who has all the money, there are many, many people in India, and I could put you through to a lot of them. I'm not claiming that I have money, but I'm telling you, I know what requires to be done in this industry, what can be achieved in this industry, and I'm putting my career, my personal savings at stake. And 2000 also, if you remember, was a year when a lot of businesses were actually being built with somebody bringing in the domain knowledge and somebody else putting in the money. So I also told him, I said, that's how I look at this business. So money will come. From where it will come, I said, I don't know. If you're asking me to tell you where the lock for this money is, I don't know. But if I do my business right, money will come. And I think, over the last 20 years, the entire team has focused on doing things right. We have not necessarily ran after every opportunity, but we have also built the business in a manner that it is sustainable. We have continued to innovate. We have continued to stay in a startup mode for the last 20 years. So, at the end of the meeting, he signed and I signed. and we became the master licensee for Hertz in India. In the year 2001, we started representing. And guess what? Within a few months of our starting, 9/11 happened. So
So, what was your plan to get customers? Like, who would rent these cars? Were you looking at HNIs or corporates or like hotels?
so our focus in the beginning was completely corporates. We went to some of the large corporates in each of these three cities, and each of these cities have large number of corporates. Some of them we had known from our previous role. Some of the sales team members who joined, they had some connects, but we went in the market and we said that this is what we are doing, this is what we bring to the table, and these are the SLAs and service commitments that we make as a brand. And I must say the customers were very supportive. Accenture was incidentally one of the customers who was the early approver, and said that okay, go ahead, and we'll give you business. So we got some marquee names on our customer list right in the beginning. So that was again very, very encouraging for the entire team.
Why would a corporate not just do a taxi? Why would they do a rental car? Like, what was the gap that this was filling as opposed to doing a taxi?
No, so I don't know, when you say taxi and when you say rental cab, the difference is corporates always use rental cars.
As in, you were providing a driver and car, or
Oh, yes, everything was with driver.
it was not self-drive? I thought it's like the US model of.
This is a bit of confusion because, we all like to call ourselves a car rental company. In reality, I don't know what we rent, because what we rent is only a service with a driver. The customer sits on the rear seat. No, he doesn't drive.
Because Hertz in the US is like self-drive, no? That model.
You're right. I mean, actually, Hertz doesn't even understand. They didn't understand, at least at that time, as to what the business is in India. And they understood. They learnt it over the years along with us. The business in India has largely been a car with driver business. The self-drive business we launched much late, because that market in India is still developing.
So essentially, this was like a premium service for corporates, like for like a daily rent or something like that, like short-term requirements.
This was a service for corporates for their requirements for local airport transfers, for local movement of their executives, for intercity movement of their executives, as also some long-term requirement for their expatriates and their local guys who were wanting cars dedicated to them, which they could use all the time. So this was all of that.
And then how did your business grow? Like these 30 cars, were they like fully utilized in the first few months, or like?
So very quickly we had to take a few cars from the market on a from other operators, and run them in our fleet. The business, I mean, while as I mentioned 9/11 happened, but our business kept on growing. And I must say, in the early days, when we became a licensee for Hertz, it did open a lot of doors for us. Not that we got too much support in terms of customer acquisition, but a global brand, and Hertz is a very powerful brand. So we were able to acquire some customers with that brand. Of course, ultimately, customers want service delivery, they want pricing, they want operational SLAs, they want all of those things, which we deliver to them, and the business continued to grow.
So you told me 2005 is when you first went to raise money, right? Like by 2005, what stage had you reached? Like how big was the fleet, or what kind of revenues were you doing?
So, as I said, while initially we focused on the corporate business, but I was also very keen to build the business with the hotel industry. So in 2003, when I looked at the market and I said, how do we get into a hotel chain? Now, as you know, when I worked at Travel House is an ITC owned company. So all the ITC hotels used Travel House, all the Oberoi hotels used Mercury, and because that's the company that they owned. So the only hotel chain, and there were really three hotel chains at that time. The third one was the Taj Group, large group, but very, very challenging to get a large contract there, because they had different service providers in every city. And I didn't want to do one hotel, two hotels, etc. I wanted to grab the entire chain, and that's the kind of partnership that I wanted to do. It was a significant effort. It took us over a year to crack it. And our pitch was very simple. I was telling them that, as far as the guest is concerned, when he comes into a Taj property, whether that is in Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore or Chennai or Timbuktu, he wants the Taj service. He doesn't care who you use for your car rental services. He is not concerned. And at that point of time, in their different hotels, they had 23 different service providers.
Mm-hmm. And each provider using different model and
Yeah, I said his experience is a broken experience. And Taj, there used to be this gentleman, Raymond Bixson, who was the managing director of Taj Hotels at that time. His family also incidentally owned some car rental business in the US. And I went and sold this whole story to him. And they were at that time trying to review all the services. And they had appointed McKinsey to do a review of all the services. And so the next thing was that we had long meetings with these young consultants from, from McKinsey who were doing their early projects in India. And they then went back and I think presented it to them that yes, they need to move to having a single service provider and standardized services, standardized uniforms, standardized cars, standardized processes, systems, training, etc. And we won that contract. Of course, we also got into Hyatt and JW Marriott and Renaissance, etc. But by that time, we had these two service lines in 2005. And we were doing a business of roughly about 2.5 crores a month. Our annual revenue was about a 25 crore revenue at that time.
and what was the fleet size? Like
We had a fleet of 2005. We had a fleet of about six, 700 cars. Yeah, about 700 cars. We grew very, very fast. I mean, extremely fast. We grew at that time.
from 30 to 700 is yeah, very, very fast. Yeah.
So we grew to about that fleet. So that was the time that we went for our first fundraise.
And what was the objective for the fund? Like,
So, my belief was that we will require significant investments into physical infrastructure and into technology tools. And therefore we wanted to go and raise some money. And
give me examples. Like what? Like physical infrastructure? You mean cars or like?
no. You see, this business, and because I had before that I had traveled across North America and Europe and even in Asia Pacific region. I had seen how car rental locations are, what kind of setups they have. And in India, because you also have drivers, so you also have the additional requirement of training, you also have the additional requirement of restrooms for them, you have the requirement for their uniforms. So you needed all the infrastructure to make sure that you can deliver what you are committing to the customer. You needed to get drivers, you needed to train them, you needed to make sure that they carry a uniform which is fresh, which is clean. You needed to make sure that when they are not working they can rest at some place. You needed to make sure that you have a place where the cars can be washed, cleaned. You needed to make sure that routine repair maintenance work can happen right in your workshop instead of the car going into an outside workshop and then getting stuck there. So you needed all that setup in each of your locations. Plus, I also believed, and while most people at that time were not using any technology tools, this industry was still working on long registers. I felt that if I need to scale, which I was committed to scaling, I was very clear that I need to have a robust technology tool. So, back in 2005, I wanted to implement Oracle system into for our financial management. And people were not even using Tele at that time. Yeah. So and the moment we raised money, that's the first thing that I did. I went to PwC and gave them the mandate to implement Oracle into our entire financial management system. And I think it's worked very well for us. Nobody else has the access to data and information that we have. And we had this even at that point of time. That was the purpose of fundraise at that time.
And I think financial management is a key lever in this business, no? Because you are taking cars on like that installment or EMI, and then you have to therefore plan the inflow and outflow to meet the EMIs and optimize the return on every car.
So Akshay, interestingly, I'll tell you, you are right, and financial management is very very critical, because there is a car, there is maintenance, there is insurance, there are taxes, there are documents, there are ownership issues, there are all of those things that you need to manage. You need to manage the tenure for those cars. You need to make sure that the EMIs are being paid on time, that the documents are being managed well, etc., etc. But also in 2005 itself, or even towards the end of 2004, I had also come to another conclusion, that long term it'll be impossible to scale this business if I was to only continue to build this in an asset heavy model. And so much before the current generation of aggregators came into the market, I had floated a model back at that time, which was called a driver come owner model, which was based on two fundamentals. One was that the driver's earnings must be directly related to the revenue earned by a car which he drives, and the cost of ownership of that car. And the second is that that driver must have a long term interest in that asset. Yeah. If these two principles are in place, then you can keep on scaling. Otherwise, you cannot.
Because now the interest of the driver is aligned with your interest. He will make sure it is clean. He will make sure it is well maintained because it's his own car.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this was very, very interesting. And at that time, I had 800 drivers on my rolls and about 800 odd cars that we had. And we implemented the scheme. Each of those 800 drivers resigned from a permanent employment with the company, because they knew that they would make more money. And I was able to convince them that this money, because it will be legitimately earned, will help them improve their standard of living, will help them improve their family, will help them do things which they otherwise will not do, because if you are earning money illegitimately by stealing, etc., that's not going to help you reach too far, because you will also use that money for gambling or whatever else that you do. And so it worked very well over the years. And of course, over a later period, as we got into more businesses which were asset heavy, but this business, we started that model, and that has also helped us in scaling up over the years.
So, do you help the driver to get a loan? Do you give some advance towards the upfront payment for it? Like, how do you enable this?
So Akshay, we have built an ecosystem, because now we are in that mode, where our business model is really mobility as a service model, and that's what we do. We have invested very heavily in technology over the years. We have always had a large technology team. We have implemented the AI and ML and all those tools some time back, and then automated all our processes. We centralized our operation. We set up a national command center in Delhi. We set up a shared service center in Delhi. So we did all of those things. And therefore what we do now, and there are about 5,000 drivers, vendor partners who are part of our system. While the loan is taken by them, the financial liability is theirs. But what we do is two things. One is we acquire customers, and so we deliver them revenue. We deliver them the revenue that they need to generate on that asset to remain profitable, to make their money. But besides that, what we do is we have partnered with all the major OEMs. So we help them get the cars at the best prices. We get the best warranty terms from these OEMs. We also have partnered with financial institutions, banks, NBFC companies, fintech companies, etc. So we get them the funding for the cars at preferred prices as processes. We also give our contract with them to the financial institution, which gives a comfort to the financial institution that their money is safe. Also, in the B2B model, because we have control on all the cash flow, the money comes to us. The money doesn't go to the driver directly. Therefore, the financial institutions feel comfortable in funding them. But besides that, we have also partnered with the workshop aggregators. We have partnered with the pre-owned car companies, insurance companies. So I mean, so to manage the residual values, we help them through that entire ecosystem that we have built to support them. Because you see, all said and done, they are not rich guys. Yeah, they are investing money, and that is a key part of our business. It's a very, very critical partnership that we have with these driver fleet partners, fleet owners. So we have built this support mechanism which provides them support through the life cycle. And that relationship has worked well. They have all also grown with the company, so that has worked very well.
So from about 700 cars that you had in 2005, and you had now two verticals, one was corporates, one was second was hotels. So tell me, what were the next major milestones in the journey? Like,
So 2006, when I mean, 2005 and 2006, we raised two rounds of money. First from Sidby Ventures, then from Sequoia Westbridge. That's the time that we got into operating lease business.
how did you finally show investors the big picture? Because like you initially were telling me about those challenges of telling investors that, like, they did not see a business, like, they don't understand the space, so to say. So like,
I think because I understood this industry, how this industry has grown in other parts of the world, what has worked for this industry. I had also studied a lot of the global brands in terms of looking at what worked for them, what didn't work for them, what kind of events took place when they saw high growth, what kind of events took place when they went down, and what all kinds of products, services, customer relationships, what have they built. And I think that deep understanding, the domain expertise that I brought to the table, I think it worked well. And of course, the fact that I was putting my career and my personal savings at stake, it convinced. And interestingly, even in the first round, by the time we were ready to decide as to who to take as an investor, we were spoiled for choice. I mean, we had three investors who wanted to put in money into the company, and we finally had to decide on one. So that worked. In 2006, of course, Sequoia Westbridge, who were together at that time, they came and invested money, and in less than 1 year. Of the earlier round, which was in 2005, we were able to raise money in the second round at almost 2.5 times the money that we at the valuation that we raised in the first round. But 2006, we after we raised the money, we got into operating lease business. We also, because when I was at Travel House, I had actually brought a lease plan into India in a joint venture with Travel House. Now, what lease plan does is that in corporate, there is always an employee car policy. This is, of course, a very large business in US, Europe, and even in Asia Pacific region. In India, of course, this business has remained, but that business, you can scale up to a huge level with very few people, and which is everything is really outsourced in that sense. So we got into that business in 2006.
If you like to hear stories of founders, then we have tons of great stories from entrepreneurs who have built billion-dollar businesses. Just search for the Founder Thesis podcast on any audio streaming app like Spotify, Gaana, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to the show.
Like essentially, when a company gives a car to an employee, then instead of buying that car, they lease it from you and pay you a monthly lease price, and you take care of maintenance and
We take care of everything.
but not the fuel. No, fuel would be paid by the employee.
Even fuel, we would get him a fuel card, and even that we will take care. Not an issue. So we got into that. Then we got into radio taxi business in 2007. If you remember, radio taxis came into India. So we launched Easy Cabs as our radio taxi brand in 2007, and we got into Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad, all four airports, to provide services to the air travelers at that time. That was our first B2C play. And, we built that up. Then in 2008.
Did you face challenges in going B2C? Because in B2B, it's easier to control many aspects of service quality and the money is coming directly to you. In B2C, that's not the case, right? Like now they pay the driver directly and
No, so what we did again, I decided to start with a model because by that time we had already introduced the driver come owner model. So we created a driver come owner model in the radio taxi business with some modifications. Now what we did is that, and at the peak of that business, we had almost 3,500 cars. We gave cars to drivers. We bought the cars, gave those cars to drivers, and took money from drivers on a daily basis,
okay, like a daily rent.
like a daily rent. So, if we had to take, let's say, 30,000 rupees a month, and hypothetically speaking, so we would just take 1,000 rupees a day. And then the rest is all his.
Right. Then you don't need to.
So we removed this whole because customers were going to pay him cash, and I didn't want to get into trying to stop him from taking that cash, etc. That won't work. Even the Olas and Ubers have not been able to stop drivers from accepting cash. So we did that in 2008. The airport refurbishment and some greenfield airports came in. Bangalore airport came in, Delhi came in, Bombay was refurbished, Hyderabad airport came in. So we went and set up our operations at the airport arrival terminals, and then started servicing air travelers who were landing there from the arrival terminal.
And this was prepaid or like cash paid after the journey to the driver? Like,
So what we do at the airport counters for the car rental is that you prepay based on where you want to go. So and we created some zones and said that for each of those zones this is the price. So that we did. In 2008 we did another interesting stuff. Emirates was looking for a partner to service their first class and business class passengers,
like pick up drop.
pick up drop. So we went and pitched to Emirates, and again a long process of selection and diligence and whatnot and whatnot. But we built the entire processes. We showcased our capabilities to them, and we got that contract in 2008, and that resulted in our launching what we called a limo service in India. So that was the first real limo service that we launched with a fleet of 100 Mercedes cars in 2008. So we did that. So those 2-3 years after that, we did a lot of stuff, and the business kept on growing. 2008. Otherwise, of course, because of the economic slowdown in 2008, it was otherwise a difficult year for the economy. But I think our business kept growing because we kept taking new initiatives all the time. So that kept on happening. 2011, we raised another round of investment from BTS Advisors, which was a European boutique fund. They invested into us. 2000.
And how much had the valuation increased by then? Like from compared to the last round?
Oh, again, I think I mean, of course, this was a long gap from 2006 to 2011, but I think our valuation went up maybe three times more over that period. So yeah, that also happened.
And the fundraise for was for what objective? Like, what did you want to use the funds for?
This was now growth capital. I mean, we were wanting to grow, to add more fleets, to build our leasing business, to build the taxi business, to build the airport presence, to build the limo business. So we were doing all of that stuff, and so we raised money.
And how big were you at that time? Like fleet size or revenue or
So we had by that time reached revenues of about 300 crores, and 2011-12, yeah, about 300 crores. And we had a fleet in 2013, 2000, yeah, 2013 we had a fleet of about 8,000 cars, which of course was into leasing business, into taxi business. By that time, we had also launched self-drive under Miles brand, so we also did that. But yeah, the business kept growing. 2014, I took a sort of strategic decision. I said, yeah, now, and at that time, as I said, we had almost 8,000 cars on our books, and we had a debt of over 400 crores.
for the car purchase? Hmm.
And I was beginning to think that I need to now move to becoming more a technology driven player than an asset driven player. And so we did some interesting things at that time. In 2014, we decided to exit from the leasing business. So Sumitomo Corporation came and acquired that business from us. So we got a very good valuation for that business, almost four times the top line of that business. We also decided to because by that time the aggregators had already come in, and they were offering taxi services at a very low price, burning a lot of money, subsidizing prices, etc., etc. So we also decided that we'll figure out a way as to when we would exit from the taxi business, because my belief was that for the next 10 years nobody in this industry will make money. And and then that, I think, is now only just another 1 or 2 years. We will reach 2024. But by the end of 2017, we also moved away from the taxi business. We exited that business.
Easy cabs business you exited.
And as far as the self drive business was concerned, we separated that into a separate company, which now is run as Miles Automotive Technologies. And my daughter Sakshi, she runs that company. So that we made into a separate entity. And this company, we focused heavily on corporate business, airport and airline and hotels business, and some amount of government business very selectively. That's what we started doing.
Like more B2B focus.
Entire B2B, and some amount of B2B to C, because when you go to airports or you go to even hotels, because finally hotel is not your customer is the end customer. So but we did that, and so that also happened. But I think all good moves, because what also happened is, if you see, this was a very timely move by us to move to an asset light business model. So, while moving from an asset heavy to an asset light model is always a very challenging thing, because you need to take hard decisions. Sometimes you have to decide on what business to take, what business not to take. Sometimes the customers insist that you need to own the car. But again, I think we are the only company in this space to have, first of all, tried, because nobody else even tries to do this kind of a thing, and two, to have really successfully executed the plan over a 2.5 year, 3 years kind of period, where we transitioned from an asset heavy business model, 8,000 cars, 400 crores of debt, to no cars and zero debt.
By 2017, you were zero debt.
By 2017, we were a zero debt company. And I keep telling everybody that if you do this as a part of your strategy, this is great. But unfortunately, if you see, the pandemic is now forcing many players in this industry to take that route, and but that's the hard reality. So So that'll happen.
And what was your turnover by 17, 18? Like you were at 300 crore in 14.
17, 18. Yeah, yeah, 17, 18. I mean, because we were now not capturing the turnover for the cars. So it was more like a 170, 180 crores kind of turnover, which is, but you make more money, yeah. And then you have less hassles. You don't owe anything to anybody, and your return on equity is much better.
And so then from 17 onward, like what's the next major milestone? Like,
So you see, after that, frankly, I have been looking at how to move to the electric vehicles fleet, because if you remember, 17, 18 was the first time that India also started having some kind of an electric car. I wouldn't call it a real car, but there was something which was called an electric car, but with very low battery range.
you're talking about the Reva.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Mahindra produced vehicle, including the Verito. The range was low, the performance was not good, the reliability was not good. Even Tigor, when the government went in for the tendering process, Tata's also came out with Tigor, but again, same kind of problems, technology outdated, etc. So all of that was there. I looked at this industry, did very deep study over a period of time, tried to understand what are the key challenges, what all needs to be done, what is something that is required in the car, what we should really look at, what kind of customers we can service. But for that, what kind of car, what kind of battery range, what kind of ecosystem, what kind of technologies would we require? So did all of that, and I think in the last year and a half, of course, as you know, some better cars have come. You now at least have 200 kilometers plus range cars available as basic sedans. You also have vans from MG and BYD now, which have a range of 300 to even 500 kilometers. You also, of course, have the luxury cars from Mercedes and BMW and Audi and Jaguar. So cars have now started coming in. The second thing that has come is that the charging infra companies have also come in. Besides the global companies, there are also Indian companies which have come up. So they're also building it up, and it is therefore now possible for us to service all kinds of requirements. It does not have to be restricted to only the employee transportation business, which is what was done by all these cars over the last few years. And so a few months back, we decided that we will do it, and again the approach is the same. My belief is that we should do it as a part of a strategy. We should lead this transition of the industry from the polluting IC diesel engine vehicles to the clean fuel, the cars which can save CO2 emissions. I'm sure some of the others will be forced by customers or by the market, and some will possibly be forced later through regulation. The industry will transition. There is no doubt. How soon it will transition will get decided over a period of time, but we clearly believe that we have an opportunity to lead this transition of this industry from the IC fleets to EV fleets. And we feel that this also is going to change the complexion of this industry from a fragmented small operator, the industry which has no entry barriers, to an industry which will get more organized, which will use more.
What do you mean by fragmented small operator? Because you have Uber and Ola as like large fleets. So are you talking of that?
So Uber and Ola have consolidated a lot of the B2C industry. I am now talking of the B2B industry. The B2B industry continues to be fragmented. And there are still hundreds and thousands of players who are there. So the EV transition will change the complexion of this industry, because you need a certain kind of technology. You need abilities to integrate your technology with the IoTs of the car. You need technologies to integrate with the charging infrastructure. You need technologies to track the battery range that is available in the car, and what is the distance that the next duty is to cover before allocating that duty to a car. You also need to have scale to have access to dedicated charging infrastructure, because this is not a fuel pump. The fuel pump infrastructure got built over maybe 100 years period. But for running your fleet, for running it efficiently, you need charging infrastructure access. And the prices here are not being defined by anybody. They are dependent on who you are, how much fleet you have, what is your business model, and how will you operate. So all of that is the driving force which will consolidate this industry. The public charging infrastructure today charges about 20 rupees a unit, but you can get significantly better prices, because after all, the energy price is not 20 rupees a unit. There is infrastructure cost that people are investing on infrastructure. So I think those things will happen. And our partnership, of course, with Fortham, that we have announced today, this partnership brings in the muscle that we require in terms of financial strength, but also it brings in the knowledge and understanding of charging industry, the energy industry, because they have done it in the Nordic countries, they have done it in Europe. They understand this very very well, and they have the ability to make the investments that are required to support our fleet. We believe that over the next 5 years period, we will induct a fleet of about 19,000 cars into Cars on Rent, which will be run under the Plug brand. And these cars in the fifth year, they will generate a revenue of about $350 million. And there is money, there is more margin available because of the positive total cost of ownership of an EV. The customer is benefited in terms of cost. The fleet owner is benefited because there is more margin available, the fuel cost is lower, we can also have better margin on the same vehicle. And therefore, it works for everybody. And on top of that, over this 5 years period, as per our assessment, compared to running the same number of diesel cars, we would achieve a saving of about 4 lakh tons of CO2 emissions. And that's what we are really setting out to achieve. And I have no doubt that our team and our partners will support us, that we build it up.
So I have a lot of questions to ask here. So first, let me start with, why is the current B2B mobility service market so fragmented? Is it because margins are low? So, it is mostly like mom and pop operators who are happy with that margin, or?
See, actually, if you see any industry, Akshay, the industry gets consolidated if there are some entry barriers. If there are no entry barriers, anybody can buy one car and become a taxi operator, car rental operator. He will put Natha Singh car rental service and starts that. I mean, that's fine. Nothing wrong, because that is the entrepreneurship that you have in our country, which is great. But the compliances, the drivers getting their wages right, the cars having all the documents right, they having the right insurance, the taxes being paid, all those things are important. And when you don't have the industry with any kind of barriers, then you will continue to have more and more and more and more players, which is of course one way that the industry operates.
And so tell me about this partnership with Fortum. Like, what is Fortum's background? And
So Fortum is, as you know, a Nordic company, and they are one of the largest European player in the energy business. They have annual revenues of almost 65 billion euros, and in India also they have.
they're like a transmission and distribution company.
No, they are actually an energy company which is into all kinds of energies, the solar energy, the hydro energy. They
Like Shell and
Yes, yes. So and the charging infrastructure, of course, is one part of their business which they have been building all in India. Also, I think they have already set up about 114 or some charge stations already. As part of this partnership, to support our fleet of 19,000 cars in 79 cities across India, They will set up about 3,200 charge points. These 3,200 charge points will actually have an energy, in terms of how much energy they can deliver of roughly 100,000 kilowatt of energy is what these 3,200 charge points will be able to deliver at any point of time. So that's what this partnership is. We of course are committing to them that we will have these cars, so that will help them achieve a certain utilization of this infrastructure. That will also make sure that the investment that they are making, they'll be able to make a reasonable return on that investment over the next 5 years time. So that's the partnership.
Okay, okay. And these are like dedicated for cars on rent slash plug, or like they're like public infrastructure, which.
So you see, the charge points will be installed for us, but we are not going to be able to use them 24 hours a day because our cars will be working. Yeah, our cars cannot be charging all the time. And therefore, when these are not being used by my fleet, then instead of keeping them idle, we will also make them available to the third party fleets, public, everybody. They can charge.
Okay, okay. So they will build it and you will operate this charging infrastructure.
They will run, they will operate, they will build, they will invest, they will do everything. My business model will remain the asset light model. Also, the charging industry will evolve. There is a lot that is going to happen in this industry, but this is their business. They will be able to manage those changes. Ultra fast chargers will come. There will be more energy, there will be more battery chemistries that will come. So they will be able to do those things and bring the best technologies that we require to support our fleets.
Right, right, right. You have a specialist who's taking care of charging, right? And you can focus on mobility. And the 19,000 cars will continue to be in the asset light model, like the driver will.
No, we've had great discussions with the banks and financial institutions, and they are all happy to fund the cars because as I mentioned, the business is being given by us. There is existing business. Our existing customers actually spend about 1,500 crores annually on transportation. We are first of all just targeting to increase our wallet from these customers because they should spend more and more on cars on rent EV fleet than anything else. And then of course new customers, etc., that we are acquiring not only in corporate and hospitality, airline, airport, government, PSUs, SMEs. So that's how we are going to be building it up.
Like, obviously, customer acquisition is not a challenge for you because you already have those relationships in place to like get them to convert to EV. But what is the benefit for a customer in terms of, is there a commercial benefit also? Like, is it cheaper?
So the proposition to the customer is simple. When the EVs, of course, started in India, the players who offered an EV even for employee transportation, they asked for a premium pricing. We are instead saying that number one, you don't have to pay anything more. So there is no extra cost to begin with. Number two, when you take my basic package, because the car, the initial capital cost is higher, so the basic package price is same as the IC car. But on the extra kilometers when you run, because extra kilometer my charge rate, let's say on the IC car, my charge rate was for a basic sedan a 15 rupees a kilometer. On this car, because there are only two components for the extra rate. The extra rate is the fuel cost and the maintenance cost.
And the time.
Now, fuel cost in the other case is maybe 8 rupees a kilometer. In this case, the fuel cost is maybe 1.5 rupees a kilometer. And therefore, I can probably reduce that to one third or maybe even lesser. So that's one. The second is that, in the last 1.5 year, the fuel prices have been going up. The energy prices hopefully will be more stable. And because of the fuel prices going up, the customers have been incurring more cost. They have been paying more as a fuel price impact. They have been paying me a surcharge. That will not be there. So that will be a saving. And then on every invoice, I certify the invoice that on this journey, when you travel on an EV, you have saved X number of CO2 emissions.
Is that monetizable? CO2, like carbon credits?
So as of now in India, it has not been structured. But I think there is an energy exchange that has come in. Carbon credits is something on which the government is working on. Very soon, hopefully, they will become monetizable. And we will of course provide also a proper certificate to every one of our customers on the CO2 savings that they make. So they can achieve their ESG targets, they can achieve their net zero targets, they can achieve all of that.
That is a major, yeah, major upside to doing this, because I think ESG is like a big trend in the investing, like investing debt, like you get debt at lower prices if you are ESG friendly, and you get more investor interest if you are ESG friendly. And so, what is current status? Like, what is your fleet size today, like of plug?
No, plug. We have started doing a few pilots. The cars, as I mentioned, over the next about 15 months between now and end of March 23, we will build a fleet of about 2,000 electric vehicles, and then over the next 4 years we will build it to 19,000 cars. We are right now placing some orders on the OEMs. We are getting the
So, which cars have you identified? Like, what are
There are only three manufacturers right now that we are looking at, and there is a basic sedan which comes from Tata Motors, and there are the vans which come from MG and the BYD. These are the only three that you want to start immediately. We will get into luxury cars, but a little bit later. We want to wait for what happens on this Tesla, the duties, etc., etc., and what kind of pricing it comes in, because that may be another opportunity that we'll look at. But then I think there are more manufacturers who will bring in more car models.
what is the range currently that these cars get? Like 200.
About 200 kilometers plus on the ground range is available. MG car gives about 300 kilometers on the ground, and this BYD, the E6 car, this gives you a range of almost 500 kilometers.
Okay, BYD is also like they are building in India, like these EVs,
They are assembly. I mean, everybody's only assembly.
assembling. Okay. What is the role of technology in building this EV fleet? Like, tell me about some of the interesting things that technology is enabling.
So, as I said, you see, what is important in this is one, that you need to always get the health of the car. And for that, an integration with the IoTs of the car is very critical. Your technology tools have to be capable of doing that. And we have proprietary technologies of our own. So we have done that integration with these car models.
Downtime can be reduced using technology because you can predict when maintenance is needed.
Not only downtime, you actually know what is the situation of the car battery, how is the battery management system working, what kind of range is available, what kind of preventive maintenance, if any, is required, what needs to be checked. Everything you can get, huge volume of data that you can get. Even the how the car is being driven, all of that you get to know. The second, which is important, is that you are also able to integrate with the entire charging network, because access to that network, making bookings for when you want to get energy in your car, which is the nearest location, the navigation to that, all of that is the second part. The third part, as I said, is this whole issue of to decide which car to get which duty, depending on what battery range is available.
Rostering and allocation.
The rostering is something which is the third part.
Which is, I think, a very complex.
Complex algorithm. The fourth, of course, is the asset security. So we have also built capability in terms of tracking, geofencing, remote immobilizing, etc., of the car, so that there is also asset security that is there, and it is also an issue of customer security, because customer safety security is also driven through that. At the back end, we have built systems which are based on an exception based alert system, which are proactive alerts that take place, so that we make sure that there is complete reliability, tracking, safety, security, etc., of all kinds of customers. So that's Those are important.
Basically, all the inefficiencies which drive up cost of mobility can be eliminated through this by using these smart.
I would say many of them, but I wouldn't say that that's the end. We will continue to upgrade, and we'll continue to use more and more technology to upgrade, and keep improving customer experience, and keep improving the operational efficiencies into the system.
Most of the founders which I interview tend to be on like tech side, where they have a product and they're purely like building products, online products. In your case, you're running a very operations heavy business. What are the ways to run this efficiently? Like, in the initial days, for example, did you like travel to all the cities? Like, you launched in 3 cities. Were you like on the ground a lot to make sure things are managing? Or how do you make sure that things are being run well? And how has that evolved over the years?
I think 20 years back, you are right that it was a operation heavy manual operations kind of business. That's when I started. But today, our business is as tech heavy as any tech company. After all, when whether you look at any of the delivery companies, yes, they have technology for the customer to place their order. They have technology for the delivery boy to get that order, for the restaurant to get the order to prepare. But then somebody will have to pick it up and go and deliver. And so, everything else is going to be, somebody, the food is not going to fly and reach your house through this box that we are both talking from. So I think similarly, as far as today's business is concerned, our business is completely a technology business. Yes, I still, as I said, I call myself a servicing company and not a technology company. But we, as a mobility, as a service provider, what do I own? I own technology, I own customers, I don't own assets. So that final delivery of the service is done by somebody else. I make sure that he is doing it right. I make sure that the car is clean, that the driver is right, that the driver is duly checked, that the driver will remain in a certain geofenced area, that the transaction is being tracked, that the customer is getting the right experience that he should get. But all of that happens from my national command center. I have no people sitting on the ground who are doing all of this. Nothing.
Like, when did you eliminate people on ground? Like, and have you replaced it with like video feed, or like, like you said that the car is clean?
There are no, no. So there are the technology is now capable of checking a whole lot of things because we implemented the AI tools into the system. So a lot of the quality control issues got transferred a couple of years back
To the national command center, like
to the national command center. And actually, I mean, at the national command center also nothing happens because the system itself, it looks at some pictures which are uploaded, and based on those pictures, it decides whether a duty can be given to this car or it cannot be given to this car. Documents are uploaded, the system reads those documents, and it knows whether there is a fraud document or everything is fake or it is correct. So we have done those things a couple of years back, and because all these tools we have built in house, so there is also a lot of domain knowledge that we have within the organization where people are doing this stuff.
so like driver takes photo of the car before he gets duty, and then those photos, if the system approves, only then the driver gets rostered. Otherwise he doesn't get rostered that day. And maybe he takes a photo of himself so that he's in uniform. You check that.
And the system is capable of checking whether this photo, when has this been taken? Is it a current photo? Is it a past photo? Has this photo been repeated? So the system does all of that. Manually, it is not even possible. It's impossible, and it's very, very time consuming. And in our business, you cannot supervise a driver on the road. Yeah. There is no way.
And how do you do the driver training? Like, because in B2B, that service element is important.
So now there are online training programs which are available on their phones. They have to go through that, and there are some online tests that are done based on which we know what they are doing or not doing. If there is a negative feedback about a driver, he goes through a refresher program.
So currently, what is your breakup of business? Like, how much business comes from, say, like this pickup drop of call center kind of a setting, or how much comes from?
Very, very little. Very, very little. I mean, our majority of business is business travel, where the company executives are traveling locally or outstation.
So why is that? Like the call center business is low margin, is it? Like,
If you look at the call center or this ITES companies, employee transportation business or crew transportation business, with the IC fleets, my view has been that this business does not give you enough margin. It is difficult to manage the customer satisfaction, and therefore you neither make profit nor you build a brand. And so we have been very, very selective on that. We have stayed away from building, expanding that part of the business. But I think when we look at the EVs, there is a whole different game that the EVs will have. And we are creating some models where the customer satisfaction as also the margins will be better significantly.
do you have competitors in this space of like organized competitors? Like one is, of course, they're like small unorganized players, but who are the
No, no, there are large players, including the Oryx, Avis, Travel House, etc. They're all there.
and any of them getting into the EV space like you are?
Not to my knowledge as yet, but I'm sure they will sooner or later. They will, and I hope they do.
Are you planning fundraise like in the immediate future?
In the EV business, we will raise funding because we intend to make more investments into technology. We intend to make more investments into expanding our network, also into bringing more customer acquisitions, etc. So we will raise some amount of funding.
So my last question for you. So where do you see yourself, say, by 2030?
Playing golf. I've been waiting to go and play golf.
If you like the Founder Thesis podcast, then do check out our other shows on subjects like marketing, technology, career advice, books, and drama. Visit thepodium.in, that is thepodium.in for a complete list of all our shows.
Before we end the episode, I want to share a bit about my journey as a podcaster. I started podcasting in 2020, and in the last 2 years, I've had the opportunity to interview more than 250 founders who are shaping India's future across sectors. If you also want to speak to the best minds in your field and build an enviable network, then you must consider becoming a podcaster. And the first step to becoming a podcaster starts with Zencaster, which takes care of all the nuts and bolts of podcasting, from remote recording to editing to distribution and finally monetization. If you are planning to check out the platform, then please show your support for the Founder Thesis podcast by using this link, zen.ai/founder thesis. That's zen.ai/founder thesis, founder thesis, founder thesis, founder thesis, founder thesis, founder thesis, founder thesis,